A corrupt bully thought he could slap a 78-year-old widow and walk away. But he didn't know who her son was. He didn't know a Navy SEAL and his canine partner were coming home. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, and may this story bring light to your corner of the world. Please subscribe my channel. What started as one act of cruelty would ignite a storm that exposed an entire town's corruption and remind the world that real power isn't loud. It's silent, disciplined, and unstoppable. The morning sun crept over the mountains of Aspen Ridge, spilling gold across pine forests dusted with frost. The quiet town glowed in the first light, its breath misting in the cold air. Inside the mountaintop diner, coffee steamed, bacon sizzled, and conversation hummed softly, the sound of peace before a storm. Ilara Wilson stepped inside, the bell above the door tinkling softly. 78 years old, silver hair pinned neatly, eyes kind but strong. She carried herself with the quiet grace of a woman who had endured more than most ever would. Her son, Owen, had given her this gift, a quiet retreat by Lake Serenity, far from the noise of the world. "Morning, Mom," Chloe Vance greeted from behind the counter. Young, sharp-eyed, with a messy ponytail and a heart too brave for her small town. "Just yourself today?" Ilara smiled. "Just me, dear. A booth by the window, if it's free." Across the street, a young man adjusted his camera tripod. Liam Webb, a travel vlogger, capturing hidden gems of Colorado. He was chasing peace through a lens. Instead, he was about to film a war. Then the diner's door opened again, and the temperature seemed to drop. Cade Jennings entered, a man with too much power in too small a place. Broad-shouldered, mean-eyed, the kind of bully whose presence turned noise to silence. His boots thudded across the floor as he approached Ilara's table, a smirk twisting his flushed face. "Well, well. Look what we have here. City money come to slum it with us locals." Ilara didn't flinch. "I find the coffee here much better," she said gently. That calm, polite defiance was enough to light the fuse. Cade leaned closer, sneering. "You think you're better than us? I hear your son's holding up progress at the lake. Maybe you ought to tell him to play nice." "The house isn't for sale," she replied softly. "It's our home." Chloe's heart pounded. She reached under the counter and hit record on her phone. She'd seen Cade throw his weight around before, but this felt different. Cade's grin twisted into rage. "You don't belong here." He grabbed the edge of the table, sending a mug of coffee flying. The crash echoed like a gunshot. And before anyone could react, the slap came, a brutal, sharp sound. Ilara gasped, stumbling backward, falling hard against the cold floor. Her shawl slipped off her shoulders, her hand trembling. The diner froze. Forks hung mid-air. Not a single soul moved. Only across the street, Liam's camera kept rolling, silent, unblinking, immortalizing everything. Then, another sound. The bell above the door. A man stepped in. Calm, quiet, terrifying. Owen Wilson, late 30s, broad shoulders beneath a dark flannel shirt, eyes cold as deep water, and beside him, a German shepherd, steady, poised, silent, shadow. Owen's gaze scanned the room once. His mother on the floor, the broken mug, the man who hit her. His voice came low, controlled. "Watch." Shadow lowered his body, a deep growl vibrating through the floor. Not a pet, a weapon trained for war. Cade froze, the blood draining from his face. Owen moved forward, kneeling beside his mother. "Mum, are you okay?" "I'm fine, dear," she whispered, touching her reddened cheek. He rose, calm as steel, his eyes locked on Cade. You just made a serious mistake. At the back booth, Sheriff Brody Kent, the man paid to protect the powerful, lowered his coffee cup, watching with lazy interest. He thought he understood control. He was wrong. The war for Aspen Ridge had just begun. The video spread like wildfire. Within hours, the world had seen the slap. An old widow struck down, a bully's laughter, a soldier's silent entrance with his dog of war. Outrage swept through the internet like a storm. But in Aspen Ridge, 3 men gathered behind closed doors, plotting how to bury the truth before it buried them. The room reeked of whiskey, cigars and power. Thick curtains blocked out the daylight. Mayor Garrison Thorne sat behind a heavy oak desk, his polished smile gone. Across from him, Sterling Croft paced like a caged wolf, a developer with millions at stake and a temper as sharp as glass. Sheriff Brody Kent lounged nearby, boots up, uniform wrinkled, eyes bored, the kind of man who'd forgotten what justice meant long ago. Croft slammed his hand on the table. That video's everywhere. A 78-year-old woman beaten in your town, and her son's a damn Navy SEAL. Do you understand what that means? The mayor took a slow sip of bourbon, voice calm, almost lazy. It means the internet's angry. It'll pass. People forget. Croft leaned closer, his words cutting like knives. No, they don't. Not this time. That man isn't some blogger or activist. He's a professional. If he decides we're responsible, he won't post videos. He'll end this his way. The sheriff flicked open his pocket knife, scraping dirt from under his nails. Then let him try. I've handled bigger problems than one soldier on vacation. Croft's eyes burned. You don't even realize what's coming, do you? He's trained to dismantle entire networks quietly. And you, he turned on Thorne, you built this one, right in his backyard. For a long moment, only the crackle of the fireplace broke the silence. In its glow, their empire of deceit looked smaller, weaker. A trio of men who had sold their souls, one favor at a time. They had run Aspen Ridge like a machine. Croft supplied the money. Thorne rewrote the zoning laws, and Kent enforced obedience, tickets, threats, and if that failed, men like Cade Jennings. They'd bullied families off their land, buying lakeshore properties for pennies and flipping them for millions. It had worked for years, until one slap turned the world's eyes on them. Croft's voice dropped to a hiss. That woman's property was the last piece, the key to the entire resort. And now it's a crime scene. Thorne's mask slipped for a second, panic flickering behind his eyes. Then we contain it. I'll call the station. Cade stays quiet. The sheriff makes sure the report says nothing happened. Croft's lips curled into a snarl. Contain it. You don't contain men like Owen Wilson. You neutralize them. The sheriff stood, stretching lazily. You want him scared? Fine. We'll watch him. Follow his mother. Make sure he knows whose town this is. Croft stared into the fire, jaw tight. Do whatever you have to. But if this blows back on me, Garrison, the investors will burn you alive. The mayor's face hardened. Let me worry about that. Outside, wind howled through the mountains, rattling the lodge windows. Like the town itself was warning them. They didn't listen. They never did. Because while they whispered about control and cover-ups, a soldier stood by the lake, eyes cold, heart steady, already 3 steps ahead. The hunters of Aspen Ridge didn't know it yet, but they had just become the prey. The lake lay silent beneath a pale sky. the surface still enough to reflect the world above, except for the dark shape of a sedan parked far down the dirt road. Its windows were tinted, its engine cold. To most, it looked forgotten. To Owen Wilson, it was a surveillance post. He stood by the window of the cabin, his mother reading quietly behind him. The pages of her book hadn't turned in half an hour. "They're watching," he said softly. Shadow, the German shepherd, lifted his head from the rug, muscles tense even before the command. "Perimeter," Owen murmured. The dog moved with silent precision, slipping out through the back door. In minutes he would sweep the woods surrounding the house, trained to mark motion, scent, or heat. No barking, no sound, only duty. Owen opened a duffel bag at his feet. Not clothes, not fishing gear, but instruments of preparation. Small wireless sensors, a compact signal jammer, a handheld thermal scope. He worked in calm silence, turning the cozy cabin into a fortress. Ilara looked up from her book, her voice soft but steady. "Owen, what are you doing?" He knelt beside her chair. "Protecting you, Mum." "From what?" "From people who don't understand who they're dealing with." Her eyes, blue and clear as the mountain lake, studied his face. She saw that quiet focus she had seen since his youth, before every deployment, every dangerous mission he never spoke of afterward. "I trust you," she said simply. He smiled faintly, brushing a strand of her hair from her face. "You always have." Outside, Shadow reappeared, ears alert, steps measured. He returned to Owen's side and sat. Report complete. Perimeter secure. The phone in Owen's hand buzzed once. A secure line. He pressed it to his ear. "Wilson." The voice on the other end was calm, familiar. "Go ahead." Targeted assault on a military dependent. Local law compromised. NCIS liaison requested. Evidence in progress. A pause, then. "Affirmative. Maintain position. Watch your 6. The call ended. Owen stared at his reflection in the dark window. A soldier in civilian clothes, his face unreadable. "They wanted a war over this land," he said quietly, mostly to himself. "They're about to get one." He turned off the light. The cabin fell into shadow. But the mission had begun. Night had deepened across Aspen Ridge, the kind of mountain darkness that swallowed light whole. In the lake house, Ilara sat by the window, the glow of a single lamp brushing silver through her white hair. She tried to read, but her thoughts kept drifting. To the diner, the faces, the silence. A phone rang once, its tone breaking the stillness. The caller ID was blocked. She hesitated, then answered. "Mrs. Wilson?" The voice on the other end was refined, shaky, and edged with desperation. "My name is Evelyn Thorne. I'm the mayor's wife." Ilara's grip tightened on the phone. "Yes, I'm sorry to intrude, but I need to speak with you. Please, it's important." Ilara glanced toward the kitchen, where Owen sat at the table, cleaning a small device with quiet precision. Every movement deliberate. "I don't think that's a good idea," she said carefully. "I understand," Evelyn replied, her tone breaking. "But I have something your son needs, something that could end all of this. St. Jude's Chapel, 1 hour. Please." I have no one else to trust. The line went dead. Ilara stared at the phone. There was no threat in that voice, only fear. She looked at her son. It was Evelyn Thorne, she said. She wants to meet. Owen's expression hardened. It's a trap. It could also be a cry for help, she countered softly. Sometimes you have to take a risk to find the truth. He saw the resolve in her eyes, the same quiet courage that had steadied him his entire life. After a moment, he nodded. You're not going alone. I'll be close. If anything feels wrong, you walk away. An hour later, St. Jude stood beneath a canopy of trembling aspens, the old stone chapel lit only by moonlight filtering through its stained glass. Ilara stepped inside, her footsteps echoing faintly. The air smelled of wax and dust, and prayers too old to name. Evelyn Thorne sat in the front pew, her hands clasped tight, her posture fragile, but her eyes alive with purpose. She looked up when Ilara approached, relief flooding her face. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "I don't have much time." Ilara sat behind her, close but cautious. "Why am I here?" Evelyn reached into her purse and produced a small black USB drive. Her fingers trembled as she held it out. "My husband. He and Sheriff Kent and that developer, Croft. They've been bleeding this town dry. I looked away for years. But what I saw in that video, what they did to you," her voice cracked. "It woke me up." Ilara studied her face. "No deceit. Only guilt and resolve. You're taking a great risk." "I'm already living with the consequences," Evelyn said, forcing a small, bitter smile. "Everything is on here. Bank accounts, bribes, recordings. It's enough to end them all." Ilara hesitated, then took the drive. The cool plastic felt heavier than metal. "Why give it to me?" "Because I can't go to the police. Sheriff Kent works for them. And my husband. He'd kill me before letting this out." "But your son," she swallowed. "He's the kind of man they can't buy or frighten." For a moment, the two women just looked at each other. One carrying years of quiet faith, the other burning with long-suppressed conscience. "You're braver than you think," Ilara said gently. Evelyn shook her head, a tear sliding down her cheek. "No. I'm just late. But maybe not too late." She rose quickly, the sound of her heels fading down the chapel aisle. The door creaked. Then silence. Ilara sat alone, the USB drive glinting faintly in her palm. A single spark of truth in the darkness. Outside, unseen, Owen watched from the shadows, hand resting on Shadow's collar. Every muscle ready. The war for Aspen Ridge had just turned. Dawn crept over the mountains like a slow exhale. A soft mist curled above Lake Serenity as Owen stood on the porch, the world around him still and waiting. Inside, his mother laid the small black USB drive on the table, the evidence Evelyn Thorne had risked her life to deliver. Owen powered on his encrypted laptop, its black screen blooming to life with silent urgency. The files loaded instantly, hundreds of them. Scanned deeds, offshore bank statements, audio recordings labelled with names he already knew. He clicked one. Mayor Thorne's voice spilled through the speakers, calm and calculating. "Make it look like a robbery. That video can't exist. Kent will handle it." Another file. Croft's name on false property transfers, shell corporations. Millions moved in quiet theft. It was all there. A criminal empire dressed as small-town governance. Ilara watched her son's expression change. Quiet intensity settling into cold focus. "Can you trust the people you're sending it to?" she asked. "I don't trust anyone," Owen said softly. "But I know who's clean." He reached for his secure phone and made a single call. "This is Wilson." Evidence obtained. Evidence obtained. Multi-level corruption involving public officials. Requesting immediate joint NCIS and FBI task force. Authorization priority 1. The reply came sharp, steady. Copy that. Hold position. Team inbound. For a long moment, the cabin was silent, except for the faint hum of the laptop. Then, Owen turned to his mother, his voice gentle again. It's over, Mum. They just don't know it yet. Hours later, 2 unmarked black SUVs rolled through Aspen Ridge. No sirens, no noise, just quiet purpose. When they pulled into the Wilson property, Owen was already waiting, calm, collected, the soldier in him fully awake. A woman stepped out first, crisp black suit, hair tied back, eyes sharp as glass. Special Agent Rossi, FBI, she said. Mr. Wilson? He nodded. Evidence is inside. The agents moved efficiently, scanning the house, securing the drive, isolating communications. Their movements had the same rhythm Owen recognized from every operation he'd ever run. Clean, controlled, final. Agent Rossi studied the files, her brow tightening. This isn't just local corruption. It's interstate. We've been chasing parts of this network for months. You just gave us the spine. Her eyes lifted to his. We're calling it Operation Clean Slate. And today, it begins here. Across town, Garrison Thorne stared at his reflection in a tumbler of bourbon. His phone lay on the desk, screen glowing with unanswered calls from Sterling Croft. The mayor's face was pale, the weight of years of deceit finally pressing down. When the first black SUV stopped outside his home, he didn't panic. He only sighed, as though he'd been waiting for this moment. He walked to his study, opened the drawer, and pulled out the old service revolver he'd kept from his deputy days. For a long moment, he looked at a framed wedding photo. A younger man beside a smiling Evelyn. He smiled sadly. I should have stopped sooner, he whispered. Outside, agents approached the front door. Inside, a single shot rang out. Across town, Sheriff Brody Kent looked up from his coffee as his door burst open. 2 federal agents entered, badges raised. Brody Kent, you are under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and multiple violations of the RICO Act. The sheriff laughed, incredulous. You have no jurisdiction. The woman leading the team cut him off coldly. We do now. By the time he stood, the cuffs were already on his wrists. The sight of Aspen Ridge's untouchable sheriff being led out in handcuffs drew neighbors to their porches. For the first time in years, the town was silent. Not from fear, but disbelief. At 30,000 feet above Denver, Sterling Croft thought he had escaped. Champagne in hand, he watched the runway fall away beneath his private jet. Relief flickered across his face. Then, the plane slowed. Engines powered down. What's going on? He barked. Towers ordered us back to the hangar, sir, the pilot said. Airspace locked down. Croft looked out the window. Black SUVs surrounded the tarmac. When the jet door opened, agents were waiting with weapons holstered and papers in hand. As they led him down the stairs in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled and his arrogance gone, he finally looked like what he truly was: a thief, caught in daylight. By the next morning, Aspen Ridge was quiet again. But it was a new kind of quiet. The kind that comes after a storm. Broken, but clean. The storm had passed. Aspen Ridge was no longer the same, wounded but free. Federal agents stayed for weeks, uncovering the corruption that had ruled the town. The names Thorne, Kent, and Croft became warnings of how greed can rot even the prettiest places. But slowly, life returned. At the mountaintop diner, Chloe Vance, the girl who'd filmed The Truth, was now manager. The diner buzzed with laughter that finally felt real. Cade Jennings came back too, humbled, broken. At the town meeting, he faced everyone. "I was a coward," he said. "I hurt people. I can't undo it, but I can rebuild what I broke." He vowed to repair every home destroyed. Free. Owen rose from the crowd. "Your apology is a start," he said. "Your actions will decide the rest. This town needs builders, not enemies." Applause followed, hesitant, then full. Aspen Ridge began to heal. Weeks later, at sunset over Lake Serenity, Ilara sat with Owen and Shadow on the porch. "You promised me peace," she teased. He smiled. "No, but it's safe now." They watched the last light fade as town lights shimmered below. Small, steady stars of a new beginning. The fight was over. The town was safe. Aspen Ridge was whole again. If you still believe courage, loyalty, and truth matter, share their story. Because even in darkness, light always finds a way.